like that school, you got to start paying out of your pocket tuition costs. That's a lot of money.
Now, a lot of people have been able to do that. It may be a lot of money pertaining to how much you would pay out of your pocket, but per capita, each student in the private sector seem to have less of an expense than in the public sector.
Well, with public you have a bureaucracy, of course, so it kind of costs maybe double, you know, average, sometimes 3 times as much as what it could cost in a private school. But then again, it's still a tremendous burden on parents. You know, you got 2 kids, 3 kids, 4 kids. Some of the private schools are not. Some are more economical, but some still cost quite a bit of money. You're talking about could go $10, $12, $40,000 a kid. You know, in the public school might be twice as much, but still that's a lot of money. You know, when you got to pay rent, you got to buy food, you got to pay your insurance. You know, the stuff you got to pay for. And this is an expense that could devastate the families. So what happens is families are forced to send them to schools, and sometimes those schools are not great for the kids, and the parents have no choice.
The devil about the situation is that in most cases people are fearful that it really isn't an approach towards giving them freedom of choice, but actually giving them a sense that they have no control. And in relationship to that they're literally being taken advantage of.
I fail to understand that. Right now is when they have no control. You've got to go to the school. No matter what's happening in that school, if you cannot afford to take your kid out of the school and put him in a better school, then now you have absolutely no control. You send him to a school, maybe the kid is not having a good time, maybe he doesn't like it there, maybe he's not progressing. I know that in the cities, they have a recent survey several months ago, maybe half a year ago, that about 50 of the greatest cities, biggest cities in the country, where 50% of the kids were dropping out, not graduating. Now you know what that means. That means that your future is not great.
Right.
So wouldn't you want to have an opportunity to go to a better school? I mean, where is the limitation? What I would like to understand.
Let's look at it from a historical point of view. Public school education was always a segregated kind of a vehicle in which individuals who were affluent used so that they didn't have to have the kids integrated. What happened was that with public school, it was able to bring about an opportunity where education fairness existed. If we turn it back into a situation where only the affluent have an opportunity to send their kids to the better schools, then it would appear is that if you gave individuals school choice, that they still would not have an advantage of getting the best education for their child. And the resources would be diminished simply because of the fact that if those students who were eligible to go to the private schools, it would take away the resources from the public school.
Well, this is not a program for certain kids. This would allow every child to go. It's not for, right now it's just now you have a situation where the affluent could go to better schools. Not only could they, but they do.
Which in a sense creates the segregation that we're fearful of.
Actually, we created now a segregation in communities with this whole approach.
Okay.
And that would never have happened if every kid could go to whatever school their parents choose and thinks the best for them. You wouldn't have the situation you have now with the segregated communities that we have. We're terribly segregated, much more than we had years ago before well, not before public schools, because what happened was until the 1950s, the public schools were to a great extent serving the public. There was no dominance of the public school. Now it's like it's a monopoly, and it's controlled by the National Education Association. They look out for the teachers. They look out for higher salaries. That's why you'll find that it's costing in the public schools about twice as much as some of the good private schools. Not the high class. I mean, there are private schools that cost $25,000 too, but that's very few. The average private school is not to say that this is, scientific average, but the average that overall that I've seen around, about half the cost that you have over here in New Jersey, where the costs go up over $20,000. Even in suburbia West Orange, I know the figure is $21,000.
Mm-hmm.
In Newark, it seems it's even higher than that. And you're not getting the best kind of education. Parents are not happy. A lot of parents are not happy. They would very much like to put their child in a better school, and they don't have the opportunity. There should not be a union that's controlling education. The real people that should be controlling education are the parents. Not the government should be controlling your education, not bureaucrats, and not a union. The people that should raise a child are the parents. If parents were raising children, we would not have the problems in society that we have today, with the high dropout rate, with crime, with devastated cities. All this would not exist. Why? Because every parent wants what's best for their child, if they're normal. You can have a rare exception.
But you do find individuals who think, and it has been proven, that the unions have been helpful when it comes to employers.
Well, parents would not make schools worse. Parents would make schools better. And what happens with school choice is you become, instead of a forced situation, you become accustomed. When you go into a store, you've got money, you could buy something, you could bargain. You can look in another store, you could buy something, the best quality item for the best, lowest price. That's what school choice would do. It would give parents the possibility to look around. Where can I find the best school for the best price? Now, the vouchers would not be for the top school. The voucher would be the way it was originally designed by Milton Friedman, who came up with this idea in 1955. His idea of this was it would be basically the minimum required for quality education.
Mm-hmm.
And
in terms of the amount of money for the voucher?
Right.
So would vouchering itself equalize the cost per pupil?
Eventually, but it would force competition, and every child would have that level of education, money, to be able to go out and buy a quality education. According to the way he said it, in order to give it the real free enterprise power, it should not be restricted. If a parent wants to add a few $1,000, great. Do you want to have dancing in school? You want to have
what do you mean? You mean in terms of if they were to raise monies outside of the voucher?
Parents should have the right to say, okay, the voucher, let's say, is just not
10,000.
10,000. Yeah, I think that's a nice number, but we don't know the number.
But just using it as an example.
An example. Let's say it's 10,000. So there's some programs that some advocate, no, you can't allow people to add money, and that's
it's
not
kind of like the way it is right now.
Well,
in terms of our school's funding process, the School Funding Reform Act pretty much equates that schools that can be able to raise more monies than the poverty-stricken environments will not be allowed to add any additional amount over a certain amount so that there can be an equal relationship of funding.
Well, the voucher system is really very, very much different from the way it is now. The way it is now, the government allocates millions and millions of dollars, and every year it gets more and more and more, and it's bloated. People don't realize that we are paying 2 to 3 times as much for education than we did 40 years ago, 1960s. We're talking about adjusted for inflation.
I'm listening.
Adjusted for inflation, that means in real dollars, we've more than doubled the cost of it. Where's all that money gone? It's gone to a bureaucracy.
Right.
And we don't even realize how much we are spending for bureaucracy. If we had competition explain this as you go into a store, you have money, you can bargain. When you come into education, you don't have money to bargain with. You're not even a customer. If you complain about something, who knows what's going to happen? They don't have to please you. You're not giving them any money. With a voucher, you become a customer. Then they will treat you like a customer. If you have a problem, they'll try to be as accommodating as they can, because you could always take your voucher and go to another school. And they don't want their school to go under.